is an Episcopal church in the heart of Queens Village, with a vibrant community dedicated to putting God's words into action. Our church community is a family that comes together every Sunday for worship and fellowship, which is why I am so happy that you could join us. Thank you, and please continue to follow us on our webpage or on Facebook. Have a blessed day.
When Jesus and his disciples left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew, and with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons. And the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons. And he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark. He got up and went out to a deserted place, and there he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go on to the neighboring towns, so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I came out to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
February. 1 month down, 11 more to go. Right? And we have a lot of work to do in the next 11 months, don't we? Yes. In this morning's gospel, we see Jesus, who has finished in the synagogues, and the people have been left wondering who this man is, and he goes to do what anybody does after they finish church, goes to eat, right? And he goes to the disciples' house, Peter's house, and there they find that the mother-in-law is sick. She's in bed with fever. And so they tell Jesus, and Jesus, without one word, all he does is grab her hand, and the fever is gone. Isn't that an amazing thing? Just grabs her hand, and there goes the fever. And she's back to working and doing what she's accustomed to doing. He didn't say one word. He just went, touched her, picked her up, and that was it. Now, if someone you know is able to touch you and heal you, and you are back to restore, what would you do? You're going to tell everybody, right? Wouldn't you? Or are you going to keep that secret to yourself? Like, no, not everybody's going to get this healing power. Right? So by the time Jesus was finished eating his meal and the sun had set, the whole town was around Simon Peter's house waiting for Jesus. Right? Because Jesus, all he did was touch. He didn't say one word. And so that good news had to be spread. That good news had to go out and say, look, here's a man, whatever you have, whether you are suffering from the flu epidemic that's going on, whether you have some financial problems, whether you are suffering from some mental illness, whatever your disease, here's a man that all he has to do is touch you. And you will be healed of all your problems. That is good news. And so the town was there surrounding him, and Jesus sent no one away. He cured them, he healed them, and when he was done, I'm sure he got a little bit of rest, but he got up in the morning, he went out to a deserted place to be alone, to recuperate. Because when you're doing that type of ministry, when you're doing God's work, you need to rest and be refreshed. You need to retreat and get yourself whole again, so that you can continue to do the work. But the problem is, right, and maybe some of you might understand this, you're in a church, right? Not St. Joseph's, okay? You're in a church, and someone says, you have been chosen to do something. And you go and you do that something to the best of your ability. The year goes, and it comes back around, and they say, we did it good last year, right? So do it again this year. And it goes on, and so the next thing you know, 20 years later, 30 years later, it's you. Right? And so Jesus had cured all these people, and how dare Jesus go off in the wilderness to be by himself and to refresh and renew himself so he'd be energized. Peter and all the disciples and the people were all over hunting for him. They didn't even just say they were searching. They were hunting for him because they wanted him to continue on with that healing power. People are looking for you. You've done it for somebody. Do it again for me. And Jesus says, okay, let's understand something here, people. I didn't only come to heal. I came to proclaim the good news. You see, Jesus, in doing a good thing, people wanted to lock him in. Put him in that box and say, this is all you're going to do for us. Right? We're not even going to share you with the next town. You need to stay right here and heal us. But Jesus said, that is not what the Father sent me to do. I'm on a mission. I'm here to preach and proclaim the good news. Do you ever just feel locked into a position because you've done the right thing and people won't let you go? But you know that's not the only thing that God is calling you to do? And you can't figure out how to get out of it? Like, there's times where sometimes I'll say yes. I'm a good yes person. I don't know how to say no too often, but when I do say no, I mean it. Right? But oftentimes I say yes, and then I get tired, and then I have to do something, and I'm like, I don't want to do it. And people are like, well, why did you say yes? Because people expect it, right? People want you to do things for you. But if that's not your call, if that's not your passion, what are you doing, right? Jesus is the example. He was here. He had the ability to cure and heal people. And that's one of the gifts that God gave him. But that wasn't the primary reason why God sent him on this earth. And so he had to continue on to the next towns, preaching and teaching those good news so that the people in the next town could experience the same thing. That it wasn't all for them, but it was for the whole entire world that Jesus came to heal and save and preach and teach to. We're called to be ministers of the gospel. We're called to go out and boldly proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ out into the world. And though we care for each other as a family, and though we take care of each other and go to each other's houses when we're sick, give things when we are needed, if we know that someone is destitute, we provide for them. That is not all that Jesus calls us to do. We have to go out into the world and preach the good news. We have to go out and say, the reason why we come to St. Joseph is not just because it's a good place to go, right? But God has moved me here. I found my relationship with God here, and I found that it is deep enough that I can go out into the world and proclaim it boldly. That there is a God who loves you and cares for you, and all he has to do is touch you, and you will be healed. But if we only keep it for ourselves, this good thing called St. Joseph to ourselves, then who benefits? Only us. And Jesus says, I can't stay here only. I have to go out and do God's work out in the world because there are other people who need it. On Friday, some of us went to Father Vite's installation, and the preacher said something interesting and true. He said anybody can run a soup kitchen, right? Anybody can run the soup kitchen. But God has only given one institution the authority to do God's work, and that is the church. Challenging us that it's not just about our ministries, but it is about that proclamation. It's about being the church of God that stands up in the middle of justice and injustice and says, no more. Right? We all are seeing what's going on in our world. We're all talking about it at our dinner tables or at work. Did you see what the president did today? Did you see what the legislators did that way? Do you see what's going on the other way? We're talking about it, right? But what are we doing about it? Are we holding everybody accountable who's in charge? Are we protesting? Are we being the church? Because if we would be the church, the world will be a different way and a different life. I was having this conversation earlier, and someone was saying, what is the church doing to respond? And I said, believe it or not, the Episcopal Church is doing a lot to respond. We're just not in the news, right? But we've declared in New York, on Long Island, that all churches, if need be, will be sanctuary churches. Did you know that? Right? And Long Island of all the places, where we have people in Suffolk County who are rallying with our president on immigration. Where Bishop has boldly stood up and said, I don't care. Either you're going to do the right thing or you're just not going to do the right thing, but I am going to stand up and say, no more. Because that's not what the gospel preaches. If the gospel was all for me in one, Jesus would never have left Simon Peter's house. He would have just stayed there and healed only the people in that town. But he said, no, the good news is for everybody. And so this land, the bishop is saying, this land, this country is for everybody. And we are not just going to kick them out because they don't look like us. They don't talk like us. They don't go the American way, and whatever the American way is, right? Because you go to region, the American way looks different. And New York than California. Or down south versus north, the American way looks different. We're not going to get rid of them. We're going to care for our people, especially our dreamers. Because they came here with their parents. And last time I checked, no child I know of can say, I'm not going. All right? They got to go. And so they were brought here. Victims, whether it was a victim of their circumstances, whatever it is. They're here in this country, born. They weren't born here, but they certainly were raised here. And they certainly were taught the American dream. And the American dream is not just for Americans, but it's for everybody. Right? So when the church stands up to injustice, we see what can happen. And we know that the church has stood up many times for injustices. That's why slavery is gone, right? That's why there are so many programs out there to help people in need. That's why there's a lot of hospitals and places where people weren't building hospitals, like Far Rockaway. The only hospital left in Far Rockaway is St. John's Episcopal Hospital. And no one wants to buy it. You know why no one wants to buy it? Because that's where poor people live. People who are on Medicaid and Medicare. Nobody wants a nonprofit hospital. It's all profit. Right? But it's the church that has stood there and said, we will minister to the people of God right here. And all are welcome. You see, if we only keep good things to ourselves, the world will just continue on in the way it's continuing on. But when the church stands up for justice and makes a difference in people's lives, that is what the good news is. That's what we should be proclaiming boldly out there. I tell you, I really never knew how much those toys that they asked for at St. John's, how important it was until I started working there. I was like, can't they get their own toys? I'm like tired of toy drives. But the line, literally, that went up Beach Street for those toys. Parents happy to give their kids something for Christmas and get a meal out of it. It was amazing. We have to do more than just keep it to ourselves. We have a good thing here at St. Joseph's. Yesterday we had a wonderful day gathered together to look at St. Joseph, what we love about St. Joseph's, what we do well at St. Joseph. We talked about our disappointments too, don't worry for those who weren't there. We talked about both sides, right? But we identified commonalities where our passion lies. Our passion seems to lie in making sure that we do community service and outreach, that we put more into that energy of going out into the world and living into the gospel. But for all like the priest said, Father said, but all the soup kitchens in the world and all the coat drives that we will end up doing, if we don't proclaim Jesus Christ, we're just like any other organization. If we don't say that there's more to life, that there's a man, and if you open up the scriptures, you will see all that he has done over the countless years and decades of the Bible. But not only that, it's not that the Bible is history. I'm the living history of Jesus Christ in the world. And all the goodness that he has done through me, that is because of his love, I'm here donating coats, or I'm standing on the soup line, or we've created the pantry. If we do none of that proclamation, how much different are we than, I don't know, Salvation Army, I don't know. Right? Well, we'll just be another organization doing something good for the community. We're called to proclaim the good news. And hello to the people out there. Sometimes, I know that you're watching and you're listening and you're thinking that I'm only talking to the people here at St. Joseph's, but I'm talking to you too. Because you're home and you're listening. Just by simply forwarding the video to someone else can change somebody's life. Just by picking up the phone and saying, did you look at this new thing that happened? Or did you see and talk to your legislator? Did you see that they're about to change our health care again? Right? Did you see how the taxes are not helping us? Have you felt it yet? Right? How out of touch our legislation is sometimes as to the average Joe or average Jane's life. By going out and talking to people and showing people and holding them, allowing other people to hold other people accountable for the injustice, you're doing your part. Don't say that I'm at home and I'm sick and shut in. Don't say that I'm in Florida and Mother Ellis is talking about people in New York. Right? We're talking about the human race. God's children. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And you have a part to play. You can even just simply say, this is why God has changed my life. Because someone like Mr. Garfield, who's behind the camera and you never see him, is recording it. And because he's recording it, I'm hearing God's word. And I'm realizing that God has not left me or forsaken me. And so I spread the good news out into the world. No matter where you are, sitting here at St. Joseph's, there in cyberspace, our role is to proclaim the good news. Not simply to say, we have a good thing going here at St. Joseph's. If they find us, we'll welcome them in. Else, that's it. We got to go out boldly and proclaiming. Just like Jesus said that I have other places to go. So the question for us here at St. Joseph is, where is God sending us? Where out there are we going to go? Where does God need the talents that he has blessed us with here in St. Joseph's? Where does it need to be out in Queens Village? Remember what I said, does it just need to be in this triangle of 100, 217th, and 99th? Or does it need to be on Hempstead Avenue, Jamaica Avenue, Boulevard, thank you. Right? Where is God sending us out into the world to preach the good news and to care for our beloved community? That's our question and our challenge. We have 11 months. We even have 11 years. No matter however way God puts it. As long as he has us on the earth, we should always be asking, where does God need me most? Amen. Amen.
Such a special way, that's why I praise you.
boldly proclaim the good news of your Son. Amen.
Amen.